Welcome to the Darkstream, VOX'S, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. I don't know if you're hearing this. If you could just let me know if comms are good, that would be useful. Good to go. Okay, excellent. That's what we needed to know. So, very good. 5 by 5. Well, good evening, and enjoying the D-Live experience, I hope. It's it's definitely interesting to see how the quality of the video is actually better than it is on YouTube, which is nice. I don't know if we'll even bother going back to YouTube once YouTube agrees to restore my access to the account. As you know, my channel's not banned, but I am not allowed access to it for reasons related to some defamatory actions on Google's part. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, we have no idea how reliable D-Live is either, but that's okay. I haven't done anything to violate anything that I'm aware of, and so not that that means a damn thing these days in this age of high-tech virtual corporate censorship, but it's fine. As always, we simply keep doing what we're doing. Yeah, don't worry about, with regards to the YouTube thing, of course we're going to address it. Of course the Legal Legion is on it. We're just not we're not focusing on it right now. There are other fish to fry, other priorities about which I'm sure you're going to be hearing relatively soon. So Dan keeps saying, just mention games a little bit. Okay. Well, I noticed that John Delarose was being attacked by SJWs in the board game industry, which is kind of crazy as far as I'm concerned. But he's not the first one to get deplatformed by Board Game Geek. What you may not know is that Divine Right Games was already deplatformed from Board Game Geek simply because Divine Right Games announced their intention of coming out with a new version of Divine Right. And so that led to SJWs there complaining about the fact that Divine Right Games has some connection to me. And the arguments that inspired then caused Board Game Geek to completely pull Divine Right Games account. So that was pretty amusing. Not important at all. I mean, the new version of Divine Right is going to come out, and there's not going to be any problem related to that, and we're certainly not expecting the non-appearance of it on Board Game Geek to make any difference whatsoever. So let's see what else is going on. We have some work to do on the Demi-Octavos before they can of the Demi-Octavo versions of the Junior Classics before they can appear on Amazon. And but the Royal Octavos are doing really well, so it's nice to see that not only have the backers been beginning to receive their books, but now people are able to acquire them openly. So that's good. Let's see here. But we're not here to talk about games. We're not here tonight. We're not here to talk about the law. We're not here to talk about impeachment. We're here to talk about everybody's favorite subject, the baby boomers. Now, I'm not sure did Owen introduce his new song today? I'm wondering if he did that. I don't know. I'd like to find out whether he okay. So anyhow, how did it go? Did he sing it? That's funny. Yeah. Anyhow, it was kind of funny because I called him up and I said, do you ever hear that song by Lee Greenwood? And he's like, which one? And so I said that one. So I started reading him the lyrics that I'd written out, but I didn't tell him what it was. I didn't tell him what it had to do with it. Of course, Owen is a smart guy, and he clearly recognized what it was about by the second line. He's like, I think I know where this is going. And of course, once it got to Bob Dylan and The Who, he just burst out laughing. And so I was going to put it on the blog, but I thought it'd be much funnier if Owen introduced it in song. So anyhow, if you're on unauthorized, definitely check it out then. So I haven't actually obviously seen it myself yet, but I was just amused at the idea of him saying that. The thing that's interesting about it, though, is that the line from the chorus about how the boomer will wag his finger at you and tell you you're no good, that's not actually something that's relevant to my generation. The boomers never had enough interest in Generation X to tell us that we were no good, to tell us anything. That was really focused on the millennials. And it's something that a lot of millennials are very unhappy about. And in fact, one Generation Z of my acquaintance who was amused by the song said, yeah, but you need something about bootstraps. Can you perform it with Owen on bass? I'm pretty sure I can handle that bass line. I don't think the version that Owen is doing requires bass, guitars, etc., etc. And here's the thing, is that micro is not macro. If you happen to be of the age that puts you in the boomer generation, so what? In fact, the very idea that you would feel any need to defend yourself because you happen to be a member of a generational cohort consisting of tens of millions of people, that's actually a very boomer thing. I can assure you that absolutely nobody had any need to feel the need to defend themselves against being called a cynical, lazy Gen Xer. Frankly, for a number of us, it actually sounded pretty accurate. Let's see. Swedish Trash Panda says, as a millennial, I feel like my parents loved me but didn't provide much guidance or assistance unless it was absolutely needed. Well, in that case, you're probably pretty fortunate. One of the things that appalls Gen X the most about baby boomers is a way that they don't seem to care about their grandchildren the way that our grandparents cared about us. Obviously, that's not true of all of them. Obviously, I know grandparents who are actively involved in their uh, grandchildren's life, boomer grandparents who are actively involved. But, again, the macro is not the micro. When we're talking about the ideal interest rates, your or my mortgage payment is not a relevant point. When we're talking about an entire generation of people, obviously there will be exceptions. Obviously, it doesn't apply to every single one in exactly the same way. To even raise that point is utterly unnecessary. There's no need to point that out at all. It's inherent in the context. That doesn't change the fact that so many boomers behave in such a reliably predictable way. Sir Fender says, my brother's a carpenter who had a boomer telling him how lazy kids these days are while he was building the boomer a deck. Yeah, that's unsurprisingly typical. CGM says, the boomer that leads my Bible study has a habit of making any conversation into a story about his youth. Right, because that exhibits the two primary boomer traits of extreme narcissism and relentless immaturity. And it's a little bit disturbing, especially for those of us who are Gen Xers who have, to some extent grown up beyond, shall we say, some of our generational inclinations, to see that the people of our parents' generation, as a general rule, haven't. Oh wait, Jilly Bear wants to point out, listen here, Vox, boomers went to the moon and played golf and drove their Buicks on it too. Yeah, I stand corrected. So, but again, if something doesn't apply to you, then don't take offense at it. If it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you, and it's not your problem. I don't get offended by the lazy Gen Xer stereotype. I have sufficient accomplishments to demonstrate otherwise, should I bother to do so, which I never do. But honestly, it doesn't even occur to me to do that because I know that I have a lazy strain that is something that I have to strive against, something I have to fight. And that's maybe something that more boomers should try to do, which is maybe try to be interested in somebody else of a different age. Maybe try not to make everything about yourself, your music, your generation, because it seems very difficult for the boomers to understand that we care as little about their stuff as they cared about their grandparents' zoot suits and whatever it was that their parents were into, fighting wars or whatever. And, I thought, it is interesting that, music, we turn to music in many ways to express thoughts and emotions that perhaps we can't express ourselves. And, even though the musicians are often not specific members of that particular group, if you look at the music of a generation, it does often help you understand some of their formative thinking. And Jay Bila says, wow, if you say you have lazy traits, we all have to watch ourselves. Oh, I can be insanely lazy. I mean, you know, I'm perfectly capable of literally staying in bed all day and doing nothing but read. I've spent, back when I was in my 20s and I was living uh, in my parents' house by myself. They had moved to Europe, and so I was living in this absolutely massive mansion, much bigger than you probably would guess. Um, and I was living in it by myself, and I felt kind of like the Great Gatsby because uh, we would go out to our favorite nightclub, and then afterwards we would just invite everybody to come, follow us back. And um, I remember standing up on this balcony and watching, these Mercedes and Ferraris and Porsches pulling up. Half of them people I didn't even know their names, and I suddenly realized that that was what Fitzgerald was describing in The Great Gatsby. Um, and and it was fun. I mean, I wasn't lonely or anything. It was just, Minneapolis tended to close down early, so it was fun. But there were days when I would just refuse to get out of bed on a Saturday and just, you know, read, then take a nap, read some more. And, it got to the point where sometimes my friends or girlfriend or whatever would literally have to come over to the house just to get me out of bed. Um, they're like, "We're going out tonight." I'm like, I'm just gonna stay here and read." They're like, "No, we're gonna come get you if we have to." And so that, it's what you have to deal with. It's something that you have to fight if you're going to get stuff done, if you're going to accomplish anything. I mean, trust me, I really enjoyed the last couple weeks not having to do any streams. I mean, it's kind of funny because some people were, uh, I got emails from people saying, are you, concerned about, YouTube blocking your access? I was like, are you kidding? Like, that's like the best excuse to not even have to worry about it, you know? Um, but it's important, we've got a commitment to doing this with unauthorized. It's important to continue to do these streams, to do them consistently and so forth. Um, and so, that's why I'm here. And that's why we're back up, we're back at it. But I probably could have got back onto it, a week ago. But again, it's that lazy streak. It's that, just um, and it's not like I wasn't doing anything. But I will say that I did get more reading in the last 2 weeks than I normally do, which was kind of nice. Um, so anyhow, we all have our individual flaws that we have to address, and sometimes those individual flaws are in line with the general, with the generational stereotype of us. So, um, Bolton Bear says, all the boomers I know actually miss the greatest music of their generation. Heard of it, maybe never listened to it. I don't, what are you talking about? I have no idea uh, what you're talking about. I mean, if I had to pick the sort of boomer era band that I have a lot of respect for, I would probably, uh, I would probably say Kansas or something like that. I mean, to me, Kansas is like the epitome of a good boomer band. Although I actually don't know when Kansas came out. It was a really good choice of a sort of a theme song for Supernatural. More viewers than Saint Iphon right now. Well, I hope Stefan's doing well. Obviously the best band. Well, here, would you like me to read you the lyrics? Some of you obviously haven't heard the song yet. I'm not going to sing it. I'll tell you that right now. But um, but if you want, we can go over them. It might be amusing. Dust in the wind, dude. Okay, so do it. Okay. So this is obviously to be sung to the tune of Lee Greenwood's Proud to be an American. And uh, Stefan would sing it. The Kinks. Oh, come on. I'm sure they've heard the Kinks. I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I've heard people say Steely Dan too. I can't say that I'm a particular fan of that, but I do know a number of folks who have a high regard for Steely Dan and so forth. Anyhow, so um, if tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and that's the first line of the actual song, so it actually fits really well. If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, except my 401, my pension, and my second wife, I'd thank my lucky stars that I am me instead of you. I've got my generation, and Bob Dylan, and The Who. I'm proud to be a boomer, 'cause this world was made for me, and the Beatles were the greatest band in human history. And I'll gladly wave my finger as I tell you you're no good, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love myself. You'd boomer if you could. So, so that was fun to share with Owen. But the thing was that in the second verse, Lee Greenwood gets into from the shores of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, that kind of stuff. So that presented a little bit of a challenge initially, but it actually worked out really well. From the moon landings of NASA to the war in Vietnam, from the muddy fields of Woodstock to protesting the bomb, from civil rights in Georgia to the riots in LA, well, there's pride in every boomer heart. It's time we stand and say, I'm proud to be a boomer, 'cause this world was made for me, and the Beatles were the greatest band in human history. And I'll gladly wave my finger as I tell you you're no good, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love myself. You'd boomer if you could. So, anyhow, I think Owen should record it at some point in time, but that was a lot of fun, especially trying to work all the big Woodstock, Vietnam, the moon landings, etc., etc. And of course, it was just fortuitous that the line about the Beatles are the greatest band in history, that just by adding the word human, it matched the flow perfectly. So, Be Good Bear asks, you wrote that? Well, it's just a parody of the Lee Greenwood song, so it's not exactly what I would call original. It's just biting and funny and apt. So, anyhow, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some of you may not recall, but I actually am a lyricist. I was the lyricist for Psychosonic, the techno band, and so I'm no David Sylvian, but I can usually string a reasonable flow together. I think I'm actually a much better lyricist now than I was in Psychosonic, because I didn't really understand the importance of the flow. If you look at, if you don't understand what I mean by flow, compare a George Michael song to a Prince song. Sometimes, Prince was an absolute musical genius, no question, but he didn't always get the flow of the lyrics to an optimal level. One of the things that George Michael was so amazingly good at, and it just astonishes me how good he was at writing the lyrics and arranging them in such a way that the way that he sang them would flow perfectly with both the melody and the syncopation of the song. It's really rather remarkable, and I don't think that George Michael ever got as much credit as he should have for being such a great lyricist in that context. I mean, the thing that was a little bit disappointing about George Michael as a songwriter is that most of his lyrics were, because they were personal, they tended to be fairly monotonously focused on his sexual obsessions. And, so it tended to be, it's kind of funny because Prince, for all that he was supposed to be the very overly sexual whatever, and certainly some of the songs were like that, but he actually had, in many ways, greater range lyrically than George Michael did. Although, like I said, George Michael's ability to write lyrical flow was without question superior. Top 3 David Sylvian songs. Well, the number 1 song is easy. That's Orpheus off Secrets of the Beehive. I would say that my second favorite song, and the one I really like, is Before the Bullfight. Doom, 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 doom. It's so simple. Doom, 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 doom. And it's just so hypnotizing, and it sets off his voice so well. I think it's so hard to choose because if my Desert Island CD is Gone to Earth. I love that whole CD. I listen to it all the time. But if I actually think about like my favorite songs per se, I would put When Poets Dreamed of Angels and September and The Devil's Own probably ahead of most of the songs on Gone to Earth. So, so that's, and I even like, some of his newer stuff, is still very good. What's the Snowborn Sorrow? I think it's technically 9 Horses, but obviously it's just David Sylvian, with his usual band. But the one about Adam and Cell, like, I mean, there's an example of a flawed song. Adam and Cell is just, even though it fits, it's got the wrong lyrical vibe for that song, even though it flows well. It's a little bit awkward somehow, but it's still a good song. And then the one about the black-winged birds, it's none of it reaches the level of Gone to Earth or Secrets of the Beehive, but it's still really good. And then, of course, Blackwater is a great song as well. I don't quite like it as much as the Beehive and Gone to Earth songs, but that's obviously the best song on that Rain Tree Crow CD. Anyhow, I can obviously go on about David Sylvian for days, but Yeah, Nostalgia is a great track as well. Um, he actually, I don't think he speaks Italian, but he actually does a really good job. Frankly, he sounds better pronouncing his Italian than I normally do on on that other track. I can't remember the name of it. But if you haven't listened, to David Sylvian, I'd highly recommend it. It's not it's music that is relaxing. I don't actually like to write to it. I usually prefer Mozart or Wagner or Dvorak, um, but I do really enjoy when I'm driving or something. I I usually switch between stuff like Bandmade and Baby Metal, and then switch over to Sylvian and leave it there for a long time. So anyhow, so how many people did we have show up tonight? Anyhow, I can't see on this particular thing, so I'm just curious. Maybe I can see here. I don't. Okay, no, I get. Okay, they're saying 328. Oh, I see. Yeah, I guess I can see down if I pop up that screen. 334. Okay, that's cool. Well, anyhow, that's really all I have to say for the moment. So, but I'm glad you stopped by, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Darkstream. I think that we'll probably do one quite soon, if not necessarily tomorrow. Obviously, I'll announce it on Social Galactic beforehand, just so that people have some idea. And if you're not on unauthorized yet, I very much encourage you to join there. Razor Fist has been pumping out the stuff. There's going to be some new content soon, and we'll look forward to seeing you the next time. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.